right orientation. And no, I'm not talking about sexual orientation yet.
Hello, all 22 of you. Happy to have you here on
Welcome
a Tuesday.
To our LGBTQ Pride Lovestream. Hope you got a fruity bev, because we sure as hell do. How's everybody today? Happy Pride.
No one's
Well. Kara, get your butt on over here.
Just want everyone in the chat to know that I received this as a gift. Not that there's anything wrong with owning one not received as a gift, but I don't want it to be tied too much to my personality.
I've received everything that I'm wearing as a gift from you guys. Thank you, Patreon supporters. Oh, someone said that I was just listening to Profit by Sam on Spotify.
What? That's so nice.
Oh, glad to see everyone.
Jimmy!
Damn,
a blackberry lemonade Waterloo. What's in a Waterloo? Wow, we got some high rollers in this live stream.
Wow, and Jared's texting.
I really think it's your outfit in the thumbnail.
You
I
reckon?
knew it would bode well for us.
Oh.
And you're looking buff. Have you been working out?
Been climbing.
It shows. It really shows. I'm wearing Tana's shirt, and it's been in a cupboard for a while. It smells very, very musty.
It's actually been, it's a kind of a performance art piece. It's been in the closet, just collecting must.
It's like all I can think about is the mustiness.
It's a microcosm. You can get rid of it.
I might. Yeah. It's getting warm without the AC. The Netherlands!
Jimmy Snow, hello. This is now a Jimmy stream. Let's just talk to Jimmy. I'm down. Jimmy, it's been a while. Let's do a video soon. You wanna?
Yeah.
It could be this one. How do we get Jimmy on this? We still don't have OBS. Jimmy, like years ago, was like, guys, learn how to do that.
No.
Don't view my story. Okay.
Tana, tell them what we're doing today.
Oh, script. Today we're going to be answering some questions from Instagram and also from you guys, because the people here, I think, should take precedence over people from Instagram. Not, unless it's a live stream. We're all in this together.
We'll also be taking super chats.
Oh yeah, if you really want to talk to us, send us a super chat.
If you really want to get through to our thick skulls, a super chat goes down the tree.
If only the conservatives can understand that.
Oh, I was like, where's my phone?
Pay us to understand. Sorry, just trying to find the story where I collected questions.
Tana, you wore this outfit out this Pride weekend. How did it go down?
I mean, it was a shit show. It was no good, Sam. You were there.
Okay, but when I left Tana at the bar...
Alone.
People were fawning over him.
40-year-old straight women.
They were 40-year-old straight women?
Nothing wrong with y'all. Love you.
Yep.
Love
Some
you.
of our biggest donors. But, yeah, they were hooked on you, that's for sure.
Let's just say I haven't been, well...
Could we use a mod? I'm going to start responding to the comments better. Why do men like funny girls? I think we all like to laugh, regulates the nervous system, keeps life interesting. I would struggle to... Hi, Banksy. Would you like to say a piece?
That was a beautiful piece of cat poetry.
This is the time of day where Banksy starts meowing for dinner an hour before he's supposed to have dinner, because he thinks if he doesn't, he won't get it.
It's a little quirk. Someone asked if we finished the Under the Banner of Heaven yet, and the answer for me is no.
You just not that shut. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people saying about Under the Banner of Heaven that it's kind of up its own arse. Chris Patty wrote an article about it. I haven't read the article, but I replied to his story and I was like, I haven't really felt interested in watching the rest of it, but I agree with whatever you said, probably, based on what I know about Chris and like...
I did read the article and did enjoy it and did message him saying,
you did?
I enjoyed your take on it. He did say something like, I've never heard of anyone of like a conspiracy about Brigham Young and John Taylor killing Joseph Smith, and I was like, I've definitely heard that. There's plenty of fundamentalist circles that believe that. Like ultra.
All right, who keeps saying don't view my story? You're getting blocked from the chat, or you're getting put in timeout. Yeah, Tana's outfits are like, psh. I've only watched the first couple of episodes. It takes some time for Exmos. Yeah, and I also wonder, like, that they're not making Under the Banner of Heaven for ex-Mormons. You know, they're making it to be, like, a show for the general public. So I think it makes sense that we're going to have, like, the most scrutiny of it. And, you know, it's not like their target audience is us.
Yeah. I've heard they've taken some liberties, some creative license. I don't know. There's a Teal Swan documentary out there. I gotta watch that.
Oh
I'm
my
trying
God.
to get caught up on
You guys have to watch the
shit
deep
going
dive on
today.
Hulu.
The Deep End.
The Deep End, God. And then go and watch the Mormon Stories episode I co-hosted on Friday that just came out yesterday with Teal Swan's childhood best friend. Lots of Joseph Smith similarities. I mean, it's not like, you know, it's still apples and oranges, but yeah, her founding story is...
Orange and teal. Pretty interesting. Someone, just diving into the more questions, someone asked to explain the relationship between Mormons, or, you know, Mormons as allies. What are our thoughts on Mormons as allies? I made a pretty divisive statement this week that you can't give money to organizations that are actively harming the LGBTQ plus community and call yourself an ally. And some allies, surprisingly, had some pushback on that. And there is a legitimate point to be made that we do all exist in interconnected systems of oppression and exploitation, and there's kind of no escape from that. And if, like, a gay person eats at Chick-fil-A, I'm not like, you traitor, we gotta crucify you. It does suck. It all just sucks. That being said, did you have...
Well, I do think there's room for seeing ally as a spectrum, as a relative term. And if you know, like, what to us is, it's not, you know, in our minds, you're not an ally for donating 10% of your income to an organization trying to disenfranchise gay people, right? That seems obvious. But if you're raised in a super homophobic religion, you having, like, more tolerant views than our mainstream, like, you are sort of an ally to, like, the gay kids in that community who don't have better, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, so I see how there is a, because it's like, well, if all the allies leave Mormonism, which I still think they should, but, like, if they all did, then that just maybe leaves the most homophobes in the church, and then, like, the gay kid in the ward doesn't have anyone. I'm just saying, like, some people can be, like, allies to a gay kid in a Mormon ward relative to who else is in the ward. Mm-hmm. Which, like, you know.
Sure.
It's so, but I do think, yeah, I mean, what is it?
How do we give Jimmy a mod wrench?
Yeah,
are we getting just
yeah, we are just getting spammed by, do you think it's because it's a pride one or something? Or,
yeah, maybe.
Like, how Jimmy, how? I've been just, like, blocking everyone who's been seeming like a porn bot. Anyway, on the ally thing, it's like, yeah, you want to celebrate people who are going against the grain in homophobic communities, but then it's also like when the grain is so homophobic that even going against the grain still puts you in a pretty homophobic position because you're still donating 10% of your money to a homophobic organization. It's just tough. It's tough. But I do think we can, like, celebrate the small progress that is happening alongside, while we also, like, continue challenging, you know, the ways that people aren't.
Jimmy, I don't see any dots next to you. Jimmy Snow has saved this channel multiple times.
Jimmy Snow made this channel and he'll kill this channel.
Someday we will die by his hand.
Yeah, we live and die by Jimmy Snow.
Well, oh my god!
Yay! Elsie, I think we've received a super chat from you before.
Repeat donor.
Okay, let's keep this up because these go away too fast. So we need this to be able to read the comments.
Okay, so it's not clickable.
Well, maybe the mods won't. Porn bots infect commie streams all the time lately. Yeah, this is a commie stream. You heard it here first.
I've been actually, sorry, going back to the the subject of allies and things. I've been really discouraged this Pride week with allies, like that conversation I was talking about earlier, and a conversation I had yesterday with people who think, I mean, it's like the classic, well, let me back up. People who call themselves allies, but then when you get down to it, they actually view gay, queer, trans people as like less favorable and something that ought to be prevented, and if it can't be prevented, then we can at least like tolerate. Where I'm like, no, that's not what the attitude an ally has. Like, this is cause for celebration, not
like the attitude where it's like, if you're bisexual, then like, okay, well then just date the opposite gender. That's like, I feel like there's people in Mormonism like that.
Oh yeah, totally. Or yesterday I got in a conversation with someone where they, on a totally different note, like relating to gun control or something, they shared a meme by this person who I recognized off of Twitter, and I just messaged him and I was like, hey, just so you know, this person is like very homophobic, and I sent them a screenshot that was like talking about how they wanted to throw a family-friendly drag event and then arrest everybody who showed up with kids because drag is inherently evil and predatory.
I still think they're just scared of the drag queens getting kids into reading. I can't see it any other way.
So I messaged the person and I was like, hey, just so you know, it's super homophobic, like, and they were like, well, they do have a point. And I was like, what's the point? Like, well, drag shouldn't be with kids. And I was like, why? And they're like, well, it's inherently sexual and opens the door up for predatory behavior. And I was like, excuse me?
Anyone who grew up in the UK watching Panto, which is all drag, like, Panto is for kids, and it is all drag. And, like, he made some point about how, like, drag is inherently sexual. It's like, do you think the drag queens reading to kids are, like, making the same, like, sexual jokes that they'd make at, like, a bar? Like, obviously not. No one's, like... It's just ludicrous.
I was like, drag is dress up. Like, it's like saying Halloween is inherently sexual.
It's like saying Punch and Judy is inherently sexual. There's just, like, so many things like that where we, like, do caricatures and exaggerate, like, things.
And it's like, sure, there's always a spectrum of, like, if you have a family-friendly Halloween event, it means that it's family-friendly and everyone's gonna be dressed up. And if you have a family-friendly drag event, it means it's gonna be family-friendly. It's like,
All I'm saying is that this person in question that you were arguing with definitely doesn't get invited to a lot of fun brunches.
Absolutely not.
He has the energy of someone who hasn't gone to brunch in a while, if you know what I mean.
But he is fully enlightened and incapable of making an egoic argument for having done ayahuasca.
Story. Okay, an interesting point that someone made that I wanted to read out. Ali says, as a 15-year-old bi girl, I think that I would definitely consider myself an ally before I started questioning the Mormon religion and allowing myself to be who I actually am. And, like, this is kind of the thing I do. This is why I think sometimes it's like, let's not be too hard on people, because I don't know, you wanna nurture that feeling in people of, like, being more, again, going against the grain, being less homophobic, more tolerant than sort of what's being taught. You want to nurture that, so you don't just want everyone who's, like, starting to have sort of ally impulses to just feel like, nope, you're not good, and, like, back into the corner. But then you also do want to be like, well, you really do need to be thinking about what you're giving your money to. Yeah.
It also sucks that we're all just so fragile and so terrified of acknowledging our own lack of awareness, and I feel like I have been, for instance, corrected by friends of color who were like, hey, that thing you said was not that cool. Or I was like, oh, isn't that, like, reverse racism? This was years ago. I was like, isn't that, like, reverse racism? And they were like, no. And they told me why. And it did make me spin for a minute, because I had to, we're all so conditioned to believe, like, I am a good person, and therefore I'm incapable of doing bad things. I can't be homophobic. I can't be racist. I can't be sexist because I'm a good person. And then if I'm confronted with examples of me being homophobic or racist or sexist, then it challenges my paradigm as a good person. And if we could all just, like, let go of that, good person, bad person, and just realize we're all just, like, dumbass animals who grew up too fast and have too many tools and, don't know shit, and we're all bound to, like, make mistakes, and that we're trying to learn and become more gentle people, way
Yeah.
easy, but it's like it's always the easiest thing to do is to hunker down and be like, no, 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 you, how dare you, I'm a good person and you're just a stupid rabble rouser.
Flint said maybe some queer Mormon kids need hope that they can be queer and in the church at the same time. I don't know. Which, yeah, I know that they do. Like, a lot of gay Mormon kids do want that hope, but I'm like, is that a good hope to have, or is that one we should be encouraging them to abandon? I'd say the latter.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously the
But then
first
it's
message
like-
is like, get out, but you can't always get out, and then it's like, at least hopefully you can make things more tolerable for the people who are stuck in
And the
it.
nice thing is that I think that two things can, like, will and can happen concurrently, which is, like, the LDS Church has got less homophobic in terms of, like, the average member's approach to the LGBTQ community. Like, it, I mean...
At least they're a little quieter.
No, it has. Like, being at BYU Idaho, the things people would say, and now the things that, like, my Mormon friends... Like, there has been a definite softening among the average member, I would say. And obviously in the way that the church talks about it. I mean, even remember the gay and Mormon website phase, which was atrocious, but even that was, like, a huge evolution from... What was it they used to, like, being gay as a choice, and... Anyway, what I'm saying is there has been improvement and it has softened. It's still horrific.
And they're still pouring money into fighting.
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, that is happening and people are leaving because they're realizing it's too homophobic to stay. So it's like, everything is kind of moving forward in that sense because people's hearts are being softened in the church and then also people are leaving. And there's, like, growing awareness of why people should leave and, like, growing intolerance of homophobia. So...
Though we still encounter it because it's totally possible to leave Mormonism and still retain all your like toxic notions dealing with gender, sex, orientation. Like y'all know the ones I'm talking about. Madison,
Thank you
local
so
hero.
much.
Hi guys, I've never been able to catch a live stream, but you've been a huge part of deconstructing my faith. Thank you for everything and happy Pride.
That's so nice and so cool. Love to be a huge part of deconstructing faith.
Jimmy, we got a question. Are you checking your email during Zelf's stream today? Go get on it. Someone said stuck in the church and gay. Can't wait to be 18. Yeah, see, that sucks.
So you want like as many. You want some. Want is a strong word. I just think there's not like a way it should versus shouldn't be, but it's like it's nice that there are people in Mormonism who are softer than the mainstream, who can be more of a safe space for gay people.
Yeah. Go back to Instagram real quick. How to promote tolerance and set boundaries with parents when leaving the church and coming out.
Yeah, the boundaries thing is like, if you can really get good at setting boundaries, like that's the ticket. Because when you're really good at setting boundaries, you don't necessarily have to engage in any like back and forth. You can just be like, this is my boundary, and if you cross it, I'm going to do this action. And if you always follow through on that boundary, then like the boundary is like the thing, the boundary is the thing that makes it so you don't have to engage in conversations you don't want to engage in. I feel like the key with boundaries is like realizing like you have to enforce them. And you have to figure out what they are to enforce them. So you have to kind of tune into yourself enough to know what is harming you or what is like not supporting you and being healthy and happy.
Thank you, life coach Samantha. I feel like my problem is Jimmy, woot
Jimmy,
yourself.
Timothy.
Ugh,
God,
so nice.
you
Too
come
nice.
to our live stream.
Bless us with your presence. And
But-
then have the audacity.
As for promoting tolerance, I mean, I feel like that is just, you can't necessarily control it. Like, you can try and be as sort of non-violent in your communication as possible and set good boundaries, and then it's like, it's not really up to you whether they're going to be tolerant, Like, you can try and be tolerant of them in the sense of, like, I mean, you don't have to agree with any harmful shit they say, but, like, you don't have to be trying to change their beliefs. But it's like, I feel like a big one with that is also time. Like, how's it been with your parents as you've embraced your queerness more? Do you feel like there's been an increase in tolerance?
Well, that was kind of, I don't know that I have much in the way of advice, just to rant my angst. is like so much of what's difficult with religious parents and matters of identity is that you like want so badly for them to just like see you as you are and to appreciate your complexity, and it's really hard like having boundaries like we're not going to talk about my sexual identity, and it's like but that's such a huge part of who I am, and like
Yeah.
and what I'm bringing to the world and my perspective, and it's like it's so sad that y'all can only like interact with me in such like a fragmented way, and so it kind of and they're just my parents are very very non-confrontational, as Mormons I think tend to be.
Passive-aggressive.
Yeah, and the last time my dad tried to have a word about not even about queerness, though I grew up hearing plenty of like anti-queer rhetoric, but just about like sexual morality generally. I came back with like 3 pages of that also was my coming out, that was also condemning Joseph Smith. I did it all. Got it all out there.
And Jim was not expecting it.
And it has been quiet on the Western Front ever since, and I imagine will be an off-table topic from now on. But you know, that kind of thing where I was definitely like triggered and was like, okay, I'm not gonna hold this in my body, like I need to say some words so that you know that this is not an appropriate thing to talk about with me unless you're willing to deal with the consequences, which is a 3-page essay.
It's like you're allowed to defend yourself and you're also allowed not to feel the need to as well with parents, and I felt like that was a situation where you wanted to reply, but sometimes there's just situations where like you don't owe it to them, and if you feel like it's going to take more than it could ever give, like don't bother, you don't owe them anything. And I also think the thing of like you so badly want your parents to see you is like a human phenomenon generally, especially as like generational gaps have got bigger because like technology has advanced. Like my parents see like 3% of me, but I'm just like, well, that's the 3% where we cross over. That's just how it's going to have to be.
And it's kind of just like part of the fucked up human experience. Is like you just that's the thing. You never really.
I
shouldn't say never, but most people I feel like don't have like the best relationship where they're just like
feel
fully seen and supported. Yeah.
And I'm as I'm always saying, like I'm the biggest fan of setting whatever boundaries with your parents that you need to set, even if that's like not having contact with them. But I'm also an advocate for like if it's something you can do without it feeling like it's bad for you, just like accepting what your parent and maybe this doesn't apply so much to like you know, things related to sexuality where you feel like very judged, and because that's pretty big and heavy, but like it's okay to just have your parents see what they do see and meet them where they're at, and like maybe you only connect over like Paddington and cats, but like if you're okay with that, that's okay. Like what I'm trying to say is that it's kind of a fantasy, this idea that parents can, again, I'm getting off topic from pride, but like it is a bit of a fantasy, the idea that parents can come to fully see you, because it's like it's a pipe dream. It's the name of evolution, is that you're always gonna be different from your parents, and there's just gonna be ways that culture has evolved that they like their brains haven't grown in that same environment that yours have. They haven't had the same like learning experiences, so they're never going to be able to meet you in a lot of ways. And like I think a degree of acceptance can also be really helpful there. Again, this is a pride stream, so it's like do with that what you will. It may not be relevant, but
I love when I'm in a healthy enough place to be able to offer that grace of being like, like I'm cool enough with myself, and like can generate enough self-love that I can extend to other people who don't have it to extend to me. And can be like, hey, I'll meet you where you are and love you regardless, even if you have weird fucked up ideas about me or people like me.
Yeah, because when I'm doing really well, even when my parents have the most fucked up views, I'm able to just be like, well, you're just the product of your conditioning, and I see you beyond your beliefs because you didn't choose to have those beliefs. You are just like a victim of the culture and a victim of everything you've ever experienced, and like it just is what it is. But you can't always do that. You don't always have the bandwidth. Yeah,
some days you're just like, oh my god, fascism is rearing its ugly head again, and we're all going down with it.
Having a tough fascism week.
Yeah.
We all have them.
You know how it is.
Thank you, Bethany Stone, and I love when super chats come in pelt. I used to be an evangelical, and your guys' content has been so useful in helping me deconstruct. I've recently been able to accept myself as trans, and I started HRT last week. P.S. Tanner is high, yeah.
Aww.
That's so nice. Thank you, Bethany.
Thank you. Jimmy and Kara both commented, but then I lost it.
Jimmy, it feels like current political events are empowering phobes to be vocal again when they had been being quiet or pretending to be a bit supportive until Supreme Court flipped.
Right.
So I saw this thing on Twitter that said the Supreme Court has now ruled that evidence of innocence is not enough to overturn a guilty verdict.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Is that true? Like,
I mean,
in the way that I just described it? Because holy fuck. Harriet, hello.
It would not surprise me. The level of discourse in this country is so genuinely discouraging. I'm like, are y'all faking being this stupid? Or, oh no, I think we're just generally this stupid.
It's not people's fault. Harriet, hello. I'm a big fan of your content from the UK. Not an ex-Mormon, but a lot of what you have to say rings true. I'm coming to Utah in September for a big adventure. Any recommendations for SLC? Ooh. Well, September is gorgeous hiking.
Oh yeah, you should hit the Alpine Loop. Do a drive around there. Oh, so pretty.
I'm personally a big Mill Creek hiking fan.
Oh yeah, Mill Creek's great.
September will be a gorgeous time to come. And also cool that you're coming, because I feel like people in the UK do not come to Utah enough. They all go to Florida, New York, and I'm always like, Utah is slept on. Thank you so much for the super chat. We really appreciate it.
Kara said her mom and she have the same vibrator, but I'd rather not connect on that overlap.
How do you know what vibrator your mum has? Also, I'm impressed that Carol has a vibrator.
I know. Get there, Carol.
The court rule, Jimmy says the court ruling was directly related to death penalty cases. They're willing to kill people even if there's evidence they're innocent.
Ha 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 ha. The very cool system we have. Very awesome and cool.
That's hard not to see that as such a sinister precedent, right?
Whoa. Someone said, can of beans, queer curiosity when you are already in a hetero relationship in which your partner expressed that you are being bi, for example, is a red flag for the relationship. I'd say that saying that is definitely a red flag.
I mean, are they saying it's a red flag because they have like some misconception about what it would mean for you to be bi, so they think that that would mean, you know, you'd be wondering more? Or like, is there something they're not understanding about what that would mean?
Bisexuals are known adulterers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one. Mel 666. Love the channel, queer and poly here. Talk polyamory, please. As an outsider, it seems mainstream LDS pushes anything away from their polygamous roots. Yeah.
They're in such a quagmire over polygamy and just like the Mormon mom TikTok scandal.
Oh my god, yeah. Should we weigh in on mum talk?
Yeah.
I've already said this, but you know, nothing wrong with swinging, nothing wrong with non-monogamy, but I'm not surprised that a bunch of these people who grew up in purity culture, who seem to be kind of emotionally immature, got themselves into a non-monogamous situation, weren't equipped to deal with the feelings that would come up. I think one of the rules that they had was don't catch feelings, which is not a rule you can set in non-monogamy. That's not realistic.
Isn't the desire to be with somebody, to connect with someone, a feeling that you are catching?
Yeah, it's a very naive way of seeing it. Anyway, I'm not surprised that it turned into a huge mess, and I feel kind of sad for them all, because I feel like they were all I know they seem insufferable and everything, but like, you know, they're wanting to expand their sexuality, which I think most Mormons need to do and can resonate with, and so they found a way that felt safe to them. Turns out it wasn't safe, because at the end of the day, you're only ever as safe as your own sort of emotional intelligence and ability to truly connect with your sexuality. So yeah. In terms of just talking polyamory, what are some books we like? I mean,
more than two is like the Bible for me.
More than two is good.
Just for any kind of relationships, for approaching relationships as living organisms that are unique, and rather than coercing every interaction into this pre-scripted role of you're my intimate lover or you're nothing. Like it's like, or just connect in whatever way makes sense.
I think there's a lot everyone can learn from sort of polyamorous approaches to relationships, that being one of them, like not just I just think when you put relationships into these clearly defined roles that have been like prescribed to you, because you know the culture, whether you grew up Mormon or not, we've all been sold a pretty similar idea of monogamy, except for I guess like Mormons is more true monogamy because it's supposed to be like one person forever instead of like one person at a time,
or 2 in the afterlife. TBD.
Yeah, or like 1200 in the afterlife if you're a man. Where was I going with that? Yeah, I guess just that I think it's good to think about principles of like non-ownership and like allowing relationships to be dynamic and evolve as we do, rather than, I just think whenever we stuff anything in life into a rigid box, it can create dysfunction, because then you become so focused on keeping it within that box that you don't allow it to live and breathe and move the way that it needs to. And so then it can just sort of like fester and like get infected, and I don't know, this metaphor is spinning out, but like there's something to be said for like drawing on polyamorous teachings, whatever you want to call them. There's a really good TED talk called Monogamish by Esther Perel. For those of you who are not on the Esther Perel train yet,
she's great.
Highly recommend it.
Awesome.
And I feel like that's a good TED talk for people who, you know, are kind of interested in the topic but not like trying to dive into polyamory.
And I don't believe that there's like one right way to do it. I'm not like polyamory is the enlightened way or monogamy is the one true way. It's like literally whatever works. But like you said, just recognizing that the principles are really important regardless of what kind of relationship you have. I am polyamorous, have been for pretty much since I left the church. I always thought it was not just monogamy, but all the culture around it. Like, I would say part of like toxic monogamy was even the assumption that people of the opposite sex shouldn't room together because they'll end up fucking. And it's like, I always was like, why can't I have girl roommates? That's so dumb.
How much in Mormonism is it emphasized that you shouldn't have friends of the opposite sex? I feel like when we were Mormon, though, there are people in Mormonism who, even if they had a friendship like ours that was like so siblingy, it is just inherently wrong in their minds to be friends with the opposite sex and to like emotionally confide in them.
And we've all seen the TikToks.
Which
we
never
know that's still...
resonated with me. Yeah.
For me, it's like just recognizing that like rivers need to be fed by many streams, and that like one person isn't going to be the person that makes me happy, and that I can derive all my sense of communal satisfaction from. Like, I do require not just like physically intimate time and connection with other people, but like just like really deeply meaningful friendships. Like I don't, it used to feel like, oh, you get in a relationship and then you just kind of like, you're just in it with that person, and you go to work and you come back and that's your person. And I'm like, no, like my friends have been with me longer than a sexual partner has. Like their connection with me is just as important as my physical connection. So, and
if you talk to a lot of married people, I mean, yeah, friendship is like just as important as your romantic partnership. Like every older woman I know who has any wisdom is like, nurture your female friendships.
There's literally studies that have been done that the leading indicators of happiness in old age isn't whether or not you're married, it's how good social relationships, how many friendships you have, or not how many, but
and it is wild how in a culture where we evolved to be tribal, and now we are very like isolated and we live very separate from even our friends. It's insane how much we expect our partner to be able to meet every need. And I just think there's something Esther Perel says that's like, when couples are feeling like the relationship's kind of stagnant, a common impulse is like, we need to go on a date. But actually, what is more effective at helping couples kind of get out of a rut is going on a double date, because it actually helps to have inputs from other people and to like see your partner in like different energies. And because I think the issue with toxic monogamy and the way that Mormonism is kind of wanting people to be is it's kind of making it so that you're really siloed in like the parts of yourself that get expression. Because if you're just always with your partner and every friend thing you do is just like, well, that's like double, but like walled activities with other couples trying to keep up the same pretenses. And it's like, you're only really getting to experience yourself in a very narrow range of contexts. And it's actually very good to have like different types of relationships with different people, whether or not they're like sexual or romantic, but like, it really is good to experience yourself in as many contexts as possible. And different people are like the keys that unlock different parts of us, and it's like delusional to think that one person can unlock every part of us, because they just can't. Like, even if they're like your dream person.
Yeah, it's partnership is a creative process, and all creative processes are a circuit that require input and output. And like, if you're only getting one input, you're not gonna have a ton of output.
Yeah. Why did Nuance redact her message that said "Good job, Samantha"? Okay, thank you, Bree Hill, for the super chat. Have you guys heard of Evermore Park? Have you?
Mm-mm.
Is that a band? If not, it's really cool and you should. I'm going for my 21st birthday in September. Cool. Thanks for the tip. I'll type it in on a new tab so I don't forget.
Just thoughts on how queer identity. I at least here in Salt Lake, it seems to be like a pretty robust poly community. And someone on Instagram was like, "How do you break into the queer scene in Salt Lake?" And I was like, "Which one?" As far as I know, there's like a gazillion subcultures and groups, and I don't know that there's like one cohesive like all the gays meet up here on this day. It's like pretty diverse, but at least in my experience, it seems like the gay community has tended to be more open to polyamory as well. And it reminded me of things I've read in various forums or heard, in TikToks or whatever, that essentially like coming out of the closet as something different than the scripted norm is really the opening of a door into a hallway of other doors with other constructs that ultimately can get shed, like monogamy, all that stuff, gender identity. And this is why I think so much of the political focus is on gay and trans people, because they know that it's sort of the hole in the dike that's holding this monolithic culture in place. That like, if you're like, oh, I actually don't have to live by the script, you kind of realize, oh, this is all just constructed, scripted stuff that doesn't really reflect reality. It doesn't reflect true human nature, because this is a good point to talk about fucking Bill Maher. I watched like 10 minutes of his episode today. It's getting a lot of attention on social media, and was just like, this is so dumb. I'm so sick of boomers like him that just can't reckon with the real world. Oh shit, where was I going with the Bill Maher thing? Oh, I'm losing it. Sorry, guys.
Just a point I want to make is like, people, I've said this a million times before, but people get the most angry and fight the hardest when people break arbitrary rules that they themselves hold as gospel. Because it's kind of like how people who got pregnant when they didn't mean to get pregnant and decide not to have an abortion because they believe abortion is morally wrong will get the most infuriated by people having abortions, because they're like, no, that's not right, because you know what I mean? Like, if they themselves have felt beholden to a certain idea or standard that actually has been arbitrary all along, like, they will be the most determined to get people to come around to their way of thinking, because they're very, it's upsetting when people just go and break rules that you yourself feel like you have to keep.
And that's abortion. You see it even in just like being silly or wearing a fun outfit. People just like,
it's so true.
I would never allow myself to dance in public, let alone dress like a whore.
No, it's so true. It's in everything in life. Like, the things that people react to the most strongly are the things that they reject in themselves. Like, issues that like don't touch them in any way, they don't care about, Thank you, Tim, for the super chat. I'm ex-fundamentalist and love your channel and content. I love seeing others embrace spirituality post-extremism. That's so nice, thank you. Oh yeah, and talking about polygamy versus polyamory, it goes without saying polygamy was abusive and patriarchal and coercive to women and children, and polyamory is ideally consensual and only involving adults. And
Logan Elder asked, do you guys feel like there's a lot of biphobia in the gay community? I feel like there's a lot of people on Twitter talking about biphobia, but I don't know that I've like encountered it a ton. I feel like most of because I'm pansexual, and so I've been with lots of different people, and I don't think I've ever been met with like, ew, or like, ew, that's wrong, or I wouldn't want you because you're bi, most people are just like, oh, interesting, cool.
This is a bit of a controversial take,
But I'm sure it's out there.
and I know that biphobia exists, and I'm not dismissing that. But sometimes I feel like the people who are, again, this is a dependent statement, but sometimes I feel like the people who talk the loudest about biphobia, it's not even necessarily that they're experiencing it, it's that they, like, within themselves feel like shaky about their own sexuality, or like are struggling to like see their own sexuality as valid. And so they'll talk a lot about biphobia because I feel like they themselves don't, like, they haven't fully accepted themselves yet. And so that it's like a lot, I feel like we all do this. We kind of,
I've done it to myself.
and
sure.
Again, like the phobias do exist. Like that stuff does happen, but it's like we'll you can almost see it in the way that we'll all like argue with a person who isn't there about ideas that we think that people might be thinking about us, when it's like no one's actually said that to you in a lot of cases. Like I know I've done this with stuff.
Though
sorry, stop calling me.
Though it's obviously there is a lot of internalized biphobia, and of course there's going to be external too. I know that, like, you know, for instance, I have friends who have been in a gay presenting relationship, and then after, you know, a couple of years that falls apart, and their next partner is straight presenting, and then they lose a bunch of followers on Instagram because they're not gay anymore.
But is that biphobia, or is that just like people are allowed to just like unfollow people that they no longer are interested in because, like, you know what I mean? Which
may come from a place.
No, I think it's more like if a person seems gay and you're a gay person, let's say this person's initially comes across as a gay man, I don't know, maybe in their minds, like, oh, I see what you're saying, because they were in a relationship in the beginning too.
Yeah.
Okay, I get what you're saying now. Sorry, I missed that bit.
I like to imagine that the reason this channel doesn't do better is because of biphobia. Jimmy's saying I've seen more... Oh, losing the...
Talking about the phenomenon I was just talking about, I think a lot of the time, like, a place I see this phenomenon a lot is women that are in, like, straight relationships who come to identify as bi within straight relationships. I feel like will often feel a lot of insecurity about, like, am I bi enough? Is my bisexuality valid? And so they'll kind of sometimes project the idea that everyone else sees their sexuality as valid, when realistically probably no one's thinking about it or cares about it, or everyone's just like, she's bi, cool. Like most of us, I mean, I'm sure there's some people who are not like that, but I don't know. Sometimes I feel like we project our own insecurities onto like a boogeyman, so then we can like fight them externally.
And those insecurities don't come from nothing, because especially like in the older generations, there is definitely more biphobia of like, oh, you're just confused, like pick a side. And I've definitely felt that, like in interacting with some older gays who are like that way. Jimmy says I've seen more damaging bi gatekeeping from other bi folk than I've seen biphobia from gay people. Also depends on geography too, because I think like Salt Lake is maybe a little bit is like pretty progressive, like trans friendly, and I know that there are some gay communities that are like not super trans friendly and maybe not super, and so, you know, things just it's hard to go off of just my experience on all
I
that.
did have a friend block me on Twitter once though, because she was essentially just saying like, these girls aren't bi because they won't make out with me at the club. I shouldn't say that, but it's kind of implied. And then like I challenged her on that and was like, what do you mean by that? And then I just got blocked. So like I think Jimmy's bi gatekeeping does happen.
Yeah.
Like I think people who identify as like fully lesbian, fully gay, like can sometimes be a little bit gatekeepy about, for example, women who are in straight passing relationships.
And I have seen gay people who, you know, who have come out as gay, who have lived for years as gay people, and then finding themselves experiencing some fluidity and not knowing how to grapple with that, and feeling like, oh, I can't like undermine my gay my gay identity. I'll get kicked out if I like am interested in a woman or a trans person. You know, it's like, I wish we could all be a little looser, a little more,
and like not judge anyone else's stuff.
Yeah, and it is easy to get so caught up in our head about our own identity and how we're being perceived by people, and it's like they probably don't, nobody cares as much as we do.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I just think caring about what other people think is obviously a fool's game. The more you can get, you know, let people think what they think, you know. I think there's kind of, especially in the internet age, there's this we so badly want to be seen, and so we feel like we need every facet of ourselves validated publicly to feel seen.
You're looking at it.
It's us. But the older I get, the more I'm like, it's fruitless, because everyone is just going to perceive you through their own lenses. You know, you can try as hard as you want to like control the narrative about you. That's the thing. I feel like it's like often a trauma response to like be so concerned with controlling the narrative about you. Anyway, I'm spinning out, but
I can't believe I so quickly forgot about the example of biphobia we saw in this very thread. Remember when Sam was
when
like,
someone said it was a red flag. Yeah. So again, it does happen. Can we just make sure we read these super chats? Thank you guys so much for the super chats. You cannot imagine how much it means to us right now. I recently lost my corporate copywriting job. Tana's been relying on self-income for a while. Like every dollar really makes like a massive difference to us. We're like on the path to earning a living through doing this, which is our full-time thing, but we're not there yet, and it just helps so much. So thank you. Like, know that these donations of any amount are like genuinely so impactful. Like the ratio, the impact of them is just really high. Insert creative username here, ex-Mormon here. I love your guys' channel. Thank you so much. Bree Hill says, one tip I've come across with labels, especially with attraction, explore the territory, not the map. Yes! You don't have to be tied to labels like online. Yeah, I don't know what cut off there, but I love that comment, Bree.
It's easy to see why, like, coming out of the standard cultural structure of heteronormativity and all that, why we feel like we have to claim these labels and hold them so fiercely, because they are under attack. To be gay in this world, to be trans in this world, to be bi in this world is not favored by, the powers that be. But to your point of like, and what was said there about like recognizing that language is symbols. It represents something, but it's not what reality is. You aren't a label. You are just a person having Ram Dass, a great bisexual philosopher, spiritual teacher who didn't get pinned down by it. He's not known as like a gay philosopher. He's just like a spiritual teacher who really has inspired me to just observe, just do what feels good, and not try to hold anything too tightly.
Did you see Nuance Ho say, love the territory, ready to colonize? Thank you, Beck. Love you always. And thank you, Ian Harris. Love you guys so much. Thank you for helping me do so much more than just deconstruct Mormonism. Like also read terrible Trump fiction.
Gotta keep reading Jimmy's when we got a guest celeb in the
we gotta give him the attention he deserves.
I've had my bi-identity questioned by queer folk because I've had more boundaries with men than women, and I'm still figuring out my relationships and comfort, mostly because it's new experiences, which is totally valid.
Yeah. That's the thing is like, I mean, I'm kind of walking back my earlier point, but I do feel like a thing that's tough is... Sorry, I just completely lost my train of thought.
I'll say I have a specific instance I'm thinking of where I was at a party and a guy came up and started just like making out with me, and I'm like, oh my god, this is a thing where a guy just comes up and thinks that he can just start making out with you. And I kind of just kept going as like, I didn't know what to do. I just kind of like froze and kept going. And then finally was kind of like, okay, thanks, nice. And then he was like trying to keep going. And he's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I was like, oh, and he's like, what's your orientation? I was like, I'm pan. And he's like, you're not pan, you're a tease. And I was like,
ew.
What the toxicity? What?
Yeah, I mean, that's a real thing. It's so much... I mean, Ash Morgan, who we have a video interview with on this channel, she's a lesbian ex-Mormon who was married to a man. She talks about how when she first started dating women, it's like, it's so foreign. Like, it's so easy to date men because you know the script. Like, that's the thing. In hetero relationships, even if you're not hetero, you know... Oh, someone knows Ash Morgan. You know the script. You know how to do it. Whereas, like, when you're exploring, new sides of your sexuality... It's also new. I feel like you need more time to like process things that are happening. Like I really relate to that. It's like not because you're less into that gender or whatever, but it's just like when experiences are new, it's a different processing speed, and like it's It's not just like it's not just like fitting into the same script. Sorry, I'm just like repeating myself.
No, I feel that I've dealt with a lot of internalized biphobia, panphobia, whatever it is, homophobia even. And I mean, like, part of it too, like, I remember being like terrified because it's like, I'm not ready to have anal sex. And it's like, that's literally not the expectation. And the more I've like dated around in the gay community, the more I'm like, oh, that's like even not even the main thing these days. It can be if you're into it, but I don't know. I think there's a lot of fear going into situations, and it's also, there's an example of all the different things, and I
you
don't
know what? If
I have
you
a point to make here other than just sharing.
well, if we grew up in like a non-homophobic society, ideally you'd be exploring like new sexual experiences, maybe as a teenager, or like when younger. And when you're a teenager, there's not pressure to just like do full sex. It's like generally most teenagers will have a period for hand jobs. Like, you know,
I'm still in the hand job period.
You get to go piece by piece. And like, you know what I mean? It's almost like seen as a good thing to go slow as a kid. But it's like, I think having to grapple with your sexuality as an adult, because like, you know, the culture has not been conducive to you exploring it when you were young, so you only explored one side of it. You're having to do all that when you're an adult, which can be quite daunting with other people who have like done all that work. You know what I'm saying? Oh, totally. Thank you guys so much for the super chats. Simply Bet, that's so generous and nice, and it means so much. I'm just gonna keep saying how much it means.
Someone asked us about doing a thing about Wicca paganism, which is closely associated with queer identity, I feel like. Holy shit, just
Ryan! Ryan! Helping us pay our rent. Thank you so much. Down with corporate, lol. Thanks for being... Oh, you should go on your corporate pride rant that you were on before.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you guys know what it is. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Someone asked how to be a good ally, and that was an example right there. Venmo Tanner-Gilliland. Yeah, I've done a video on New Age spirituality, and I think we've probably done at least one. But someday maybe I'll do one that's more close, like more pagan specific.
Our least favorite genre of video is people saying New Age to Jesus, and it's always a story of someone who was raised Christian, got a little bit into crystals and meditation for a while, and then found Jesus. And it's like, you were built to be Jesus people. Also, just while we're here, quick plug for our Patreon. For those of you who know about the book Charlie by Jack Wayland, you know, the big Mormon movie book that was huge. We read that on our channel, like main YouTube channel. But on our Patreon, we've been reading, we read the sequel, Sam, and now we're reading the one after that, which is Adam's story. Adam's story, we just watched Adam go through a porn addiction, which was horrifying. It really showed a lot of like how Mormonism creates the problem, sells the solution, perpetuates this ridiculous shame cycle that just doesn't need to exist at all because of like the smallest perceived crime. It's just been crazy. And so if you're interested in that, or you just want to support us for $1 a month, you can pledge any amount on Patreon and you get access to all our bonus content. And I think it's our funniest stuff ever.
It's
just
our
because
funniest stuff. It's
the inside jokes are... We've never had better inside jokes, so... And you can dive in at any video, or you can like start from the beginning, whatever you're into.
Last week we read with Kara of Nuance Ho, and maybe if y'all bully Jimmy in the comments, we can bring him on.
Oh yeah! We need Jimmy to come on for an episode of
Liberty
Ladies
Adams,
First. Yeah. Yes!
Jimmy, wanna
Jimmy, if you're still here, you're probably gone because you have bigger and better things to do. How does someone know it's my 30th birthday this month? How? That's a secret! But yeah, send me birthday love on Patreon. Yeah, the Mormon Bachelor was a good time. Yeah, someone town on this is what you were saying. Even at actual Pride, it felt like most of it was people trying to sell you stuff. Always surprised.
This is my rant, and it's nothing new. I have nothing new to bring to the table except for sheer angst. So if you don't want to hear the angst, now's the time to go get your little drink. I was kind of discouraged during Pride, and I've been feeling angsty generally, and I realize it's my problem, and I love to see all the solidarity and the community spirit, but it was a little discouraging, like going to the Pride Parade and being like, oh, 70% of these things are just corporations who aren't really celebrating queer identity outside of their marketability. It's like, oh, we've created people that we, we're supporting a group that we can profit from and not contribute to or celebrate in any meaningful way. And that was kind of, it just rubbed me the wrong way. Or like, the main thing that we're going to do to celebrate our queerness is like, it's all centered around like consumerism. And I don't know, it's tough.
Yeah.
But then also really grateful that there is that representation, and that like ContraPoints said that you brought up earlier, that it's nice to live in a world where, it used to be such that gay people couldn't even have a bank account on account of being gay. Now the banks are out there waving rainbow flags. So it's like, yeah, that's great.
Just the fact that they're feeling public pressure to support this cause, even if it is artificial, is a step, because again, in the past they had no qualms about just turning people away. The tweet from ContraPoints was like, I can't even enjoy anti-corporate pride tweets because it feels like the one sign that fascism isn't winning, which
it's like at
it is
least
what it
that
is.
But it did feel weird, and it feels weird that like it's all just so consumeristic. It's like, okay, every group in this parade is going to order 50 of the same rainbow shirt that is going to go in a landfill right after this.
Terrible
like,
for the environment.
What are we doing? What are we doing? And with marching with Sim Gill? No, that guy doesn't need to be there. He hasn't done anything. He's doing the opposite. Like, just weird.
I want to address this question because it's kind of it's a version of another question I saw earlier that I wanted to answer. Hannah said, how can you come out if you don't know your sexuality? I haven't come out to my parents because I think it's too difficult to understand for them. And I feel like coming out should be a thing that you do because you feel like there's... What am I trying to say here? I guess what I'm trying to say is like there's no rush to figure out what label best fits you. And if you're still like... If you don't know your sexuality... I don't know that there is any like knowing your sexuality, just because I feel like for all of us, sexuality is a constantly evolving thing. So like, what I thought my sexuality was at 21 is very different to how I see my sexuality now at 29. Not just in terms of like the types of people I'm attracted to, but just in general, like the energy I might embody in sex. There's so much that can be said. So I feel like it's super valid and healthy and cool to just explore your sexuality and just like go with what feels right to you. And there's really no need to define it to anyone before you feel able or ready to. I mean, if you feel like there's you want to communicate to your parents like, hey, I don't feel like I'm completely straight, just so you know, that's something I'm kind of exploring, going through, it's like fine to also communicate with people about where you're at on your journey. You don't have to, I don't think there is like some fixed conclusion that any of us reach, but I understand that like there is some people like find a label that eventually feels like comfortable to them, and that can make it easier to communicate with people. But I guess what I'm trying to say is like, because someone else said like, is it normal to question your sexuality? And I would say yeah, because I just think sexuality is not this thing that you just like, I think it's just a thing that you uncover piece by piece throughout your life. Like, with every passing year that you embrace your sexuality, whatever that looks like, even if that looks like not being sexual at all, like you kind of uncover more of yourself through that. And I think that's like one of the big things with sexuality, is it helps you learn more about yourself. It evolves along with you. There's usually so many parallels between where you are in life and where your sexuality is at. Like, I just see it all as like such a dynamic thing. And yeah, there's no need for labels if none of them fit you,
Yeah.
And I don't think the solution to like that angst, which I'm familiar with, is just to like, I mean, it can be, but I don't think that the solution is always like just come up with more labels that are more and more niche, because I still think that sometimes there's like a delusion behind that like sexuality is more fixed than it is, and like if we can just find the right label and then live there comfortably within that label. But I just don't think that's how sexuality works. I think it's much more of a moving, flowing thing, and like at certain times in your life you might feel more like one thing, other, like labels are only as useful. They're just like, it's like the whole, what's the pointing at the moon, the finger that points to the moon is not the moon. So like, use labels in so much as they serve you, but no need to use them if you don't want to. And also I just think like the fundamental thing is just sexuality is fluid. It's more fluid than any of us realize. The question is just you know, will all of us have the type of life experiences and sort of personal non-judgment and openness that allows us to fully embrace how fluid our sexuality is? Who's to say? We don't need to. It's like everything's all fine. Am I making sense?
Yeah. It reminds me of something I was going to say about the Bill Maher thing, because he brings up this question of like, oh, how, you know, we're seeing this exponential rise in people identifying as some shade of queer or trans, and it's like, oh, well, what has happened? It's just because it's trendy and the kids just love irking their parents. And it's like, or because of the internet and the ability to communicate with people like us, people are feeling more comfortable exploring our actual true nature, which is, I do believe, way more fluid than the traditional paradigm would have us believe. That being said, I do think that there are straight people. Like, someone asked recently, like,
Yeah.
isn't it true that all people are a little bi? And I was like, I don't think so. Maybe not.
But is it true that someone can just be so fundamentally straight that there's no experience they could ever have that would, you know, who's to say? Like, no, I just feel like there's a lot more question marks around all of
Everything,
us
yeah.
than we want to accept. Someone asked, do you think hetero-flexible and homo-flexible are part of the bisexual spectrum? And I would say, like, who's anyone to say, like, where bisexuality begins and, like, hetero-flexibility ends? Like, it's just like, again, these labels only they exist to serve us. Like, we don't exist to serve the labels. Like, they are just like describing concepts, and like everything in life bleeds into each other. So like one woman's hetero-flexible is another woman's I'm bisexual. You know, it's like, does it really matter? No, it's just like what you want. Sorry, my voice sounds a bit harsh in my head right now. It's, you know, it's just like what you want to describe yourself as, what you see yourself as. The truth is that like most people are just a lot more fluid than they think, and maybe like, and I also think there's room for like, if your life goes one way and you have a certain set of experiences, you might like experience your sexuality very differently, and you might be attracted to different genders of people than you would if it had gone this other way. Like, I do think there's room for all of that.
Is this where we get into the discourse of straight people identifying as queer just because straight is a bad thing, and they don't want the guilt or stress of being a straight person in a queer positive world?
But it's like, what, are we going to start gatekeeping? I just think you just, again, I only see labels as useful in so much as they serve the person using them.
Yes.
Bree, thank you for the super chat. Trauma can also make labels tricky. I've been very traumatized by men, so accepting attraction to men is terrifying for me. Yeah. Could totally see that. Yeah.
Thanks for the authenticity.
Yeah,
I feel like sometimes that's like a kind of thing that's kind of hard to like say.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, like saying I'm attracted to a group of people that has fucked me up. Like, that kind of sucks.
Someone did say, Tan Bobin said, I honestly still get emotional seeing all the mainstream representation because it was so taboo growing up as a Gen Xer. I didn't have anyone to validate my experience. Yeah. I remember shortly coming out and like, actually no, this was even before. I remember seeing the rainbow flag and being like, I like that better than the American flag. Like, I didn't even have really harsh feelings against America at the time. I didn't know enough. But I was just like, why is my identity like the fact that I was born on this side of an imaginary line versus a representation of just like embracing people and humanity of all types? And that just like the message of that resonated much more. And it was that domino, the ally to raging queer pipeline that we all sometimes slip into, get carried away.
Lots of people saying because of the stuff I was just talking about, like the label queer is a good catch-all. I agree. I like the label queer, and I like how it's can't necessarily pin it down.
And you know, I speaking about like, because ultimately I don't want to be in a camp that's like, you're not allowed because you don't you're not like attracted to me, therefore you're not allowed to hang out. You're not gay enough to be. Granted, I do find gay crowds to be a lot more fun generally, but but I don't like the hard division of like, you're not allowed here because you don't orient in a certain way. You're not allowed to hang out me. You can't be cool. You're just straight. I'm friends with like straight people who are queer in that like the way that they're living their life is totally different than that like homogenous mainstream old-timey Christian narrative that we're used to. They're like totally outside of that, and they're totally down with me, and they're not living life rigidly clinging to their straightness. They're like, yeah, if it happens, it happens. And I'm like, there's room at my table for that, for sure.
Yeah.
Not that I have a big table.
Not that I can afford a table on our Patreon
or
income.
Or food, let alone. I'm going to switch back to Instagram.
Yeah, Mel hits the nail on the head. Labels are just meant as a shorthand for communication. To expect one to fully encompass all of human diversity defeats the purpose. One can combine words to express the full intended message. Yeah, couldn't agree more. And again, no issues with people coming up with, more niche labels that help them, more quickly identify themselves. But I also think it's fine to have less reliance on labels. Jared, I've recently realized that I'm a pansexual man who is exclusively attracted to females, and I'm so ready to live my truth. Good for you.
Congrats.
Insert creative username here. As an AMAB non-binary person, cis can be freaking terrifying. Wait, what's AMAB?
Assigned male at birth.
Oh, yeah, duh.
My friend Jenica asked, any thoughts on homosexuality in the early church? I, of course, have a fantasy about Joseph Smith getting it on with guys, but I actually don't think he do. I think he's more of like a Jared type, whereas like men were really into him and women too, but like he was mostly into women. And then, is that too much to talk about on the live stream? I don't mean
to say what a Jared type is.
Yeah. This was in the spirit of the conversation. Jared. We were just talking about how Jared got kissed more guys at Pride than I did, and we had a little... Yeah. Anyway, I don't think Joseph Smith is gay. I don't even think he was bi. I think, what's his name? We don't have to talk about
One thing I don't like is when progressive Mormons on Twitter try to recast Mormon history as like, Joseph Smith was so progressive and the early church was so queer friendly, and it's like, no, it wasn't.
Yeah, I think that's like a reimagining that I'm here for, but only recognizing as a reimagining. I don't think Joseph Smith was...
Self Table Fund from Sean Cobb. Is that our friend Sean Cobb?
It is!
Yay! Sean! Thank you so much.
Sean, bless you.
Oh God, Sean.
Sean's like the nicest person I think I know.
And we need to hang out with them soon. For our aromantic friends, is romance really one of the most talked about subjects in society? Yeah, I feel like all of the, especially as a woman, all of the media movies I grew up watching, like romance was so central. And someone made this point in like a YouTube commentary video recently, and I thought that's really true. It's weird how much like children's content focuses on romance. Like not that there's anything wrong with like children dating and stuff, but it's like we haven't even figured out how to not extend like our obsession with romance and like monogamous relationships and finding the one to children. So it's like there'll be these like kids movies with like 11-year-olds and they're sharing like such adult kisses, like certain Disney Channel movies and stuff. I'm having a really bad bang day, I'm realizing, and I just wish I could get my blow dryer out right now. Anyway, irrelevant, but yeah, I do think romance is like too prominent of a theme.
I mean, that goes back to the beef I was having in the DMs the other day with that person who was saying that like drag is inherently grooming children, and I'm like, you are perfectly content with straight analogous things all the time. Like he showed me a video from like PragerU, Christian think tank, that was like showed a drag queen doing splits, and then it like paused and was like, can you believe it? Dancing like a stripper in front of children.
The
and
splits!
I'm like,
all my dancer friends could do the splits at like 5. It wasn't anything. God, that's just a...
I was like, every single athletic sporting event that I've been to in my entire life had a dance sequence that was way worse than that. Every single one.
And I just feel like these people give themselves away. Like, if you think doing the splits is sexual, that just tells me that you think doing the splits is sexual, which implies some kind of weird repression because you're not able to see innocent things outside of the lens of sexuality. Do you know what I mean? It's like if you're raised in a culture that doesn't show boobs, you see a boob, you're going to sexualize it. If you like are raised in a culture that says shoulders are sexual, then you're going to sexualize shoulders. If you are raised in a culture that says if you watch porn, you're going to start sexualizing fucking men, women, children, and animals.
Jack Wayland.
Jack Wayland. Join us on Patreon to enjoy that shit show with us. There was a character in Adam's story who got a porn addiction, aka watched porn for like 5 days in a row. And then the author Jack Wayland, who by the way is not a good writer and is not equipped to deal with any kind of like emotional complexity, he writes about, so this main character is hanging out with a 13-year-old girl and a 17-year-old girl as like a 21-year-old man, and is having sexual thoughts about the 13-year-old and the 17-year-old, which is also bad. But like, anyway, just like in purity culture's mind, it's like you do this one sexual thing and it's the same as sexualizing children. And it's kind of like that whole thing of like, if you drink alcohol, you might as well do meth, or, you know, just like the false equivalencies can be scary. Hello, Banksy's Tale. And now I'm here on my own and I don't know what to talk about. But yeah, like a drag queen doing the splits reads as sexual to you. That feels like a personal problem. I mean, it could be, depending on how they're done. Those exciting ankles of yesteryear. My older sister insists drag is inherently sexual. It's so annoying. Again, for anyone who grew up in the UK, I feel like drag, it's panto. Panto is like an art form for kids. And it's just, like, people of, you know, like men taking on female personas and exaggerating them, or like women taking on, like, I just feel like that's a phenomenon that's existed artistically throughout time, you know? It's like, it's kind of fun. Well, there's bad ways. When it's done towards marginalized groups, it can be shit, but like taking on the characteristics of other types of people and exaggerating them, I don't know, it's just like, okay, now I have to pee.
All right, tag team. It's just us now. Let's get real. Swap some secrets. I have nothing to say, so let's see. When did you first learn about heteronormativity and compulsive heterosexuality? As like a concept? I don't know, probably like on TikTok or something a couple of years ago. But real issue, we're definitely living in that society. And it's interesting coming, like brushing up against that, having, like, even before having those words to say that, like compet, just experiencing that and realizing like, oh, yeah, I totally live in a world where this is just set up as like the default and people are not comfortable with breaking that. Weird, we live in a world of so many fake constructs that people are just holding to as absolute reality. It's a bit terrifying. Fascism, I'm feeling so angsty about it. Honestly, the super chat's out. Brie loves squishmallows. They are so nice. Someone said, well, Prager is Jewish. Okay. Certainly comes across as Christian. Imagine if Mrs. Doubtfire came out today. Yeah, that would be a... that would be do you think gay mourning, older people pining for the right now? I saw a quote today that I thought was really beautiful, because I've experienced this coming out as queer and then like having to genuinely mourn for the versions of myself, because for so long I was so disconnected from not just my homosexuality, but my sexuality across the board, just entirely disconnected, like trying just to view life through any other thing and not give that any attention whatsoever. Y'all know what it's like being in a cult, huh? And then being able to like understand that side of myself and experience that side of myself, and realize how closely connected my pansexuality is with the things that I love, because eroticism is so closely like is like your life energy, and it's so closely connected to everything that I am, and experiencing myself in more of that fullness has been so beautiful, and it caused for so much like true queer joy. But then on the weird flip side is also like that mourning for those versions of myself that were disconnected from that, and for the loathing that I had about myself about something that I couldn't even understand, and the I don't know how I just didn't feel like I fit in because I was just totally cut off from who I actually was and where I actually fit in. And anyway, I read a quote this morning that was really beautiful. I wish I had it on hand. It was basically saying like, and this has been my experience as well with other people who have come out, later than teenagers, which is kind of ideal. You wish that you could have figured it out before, but it is a very common experience just with queer people across the board, of feeling like you've missed out, that the best is behind you and now you're just left with the scraps. And the quote was like, stop thinking that the party was better 15 minutes before you arrived. Like, party's now, you're here, and it's only
when you arrived.
Yeah, exactly. And that celebrating and rejoicing now is going to be the only, like, if we do, you can mourn the past, but once you're mourned, you can't keep living in it. You have to like let that run its course and live for now, because that's the only thing you'll ever really experience.
Mel's comments have just been so on point this whole stream. They said, I feel like life is continuously coming out as we come to terms with different facets of our whole being. Couldn't agree more. I feel like sexuality is such a clear example of that to me. Yeah. Like, I used to think sexuality was so much more stagnant than I do now, is I guess just the point I keep coming back to. Again, in ways bigger than just the types of people I'm attracted to, but the types of things that are, are sexual to me or appealing. Is there any label that was hardest for you to come out as? Wouldn't you like to know? Because I have those, but have another that's much harder to come out as, but want to work on it. Well, I think like we ourselves know if we're hiding a part of ourselves like out of shame versus like not feeling like other people need to be privy to it, and I think that can be different for different people. Like, some people want to be seen in their entirety in certain ways, and other people are more content to, not out of shame, but they just don't feel the need to, just more private, which I definitely relate to.
I was gonna say, we feel like a good dichotomy there.
Yeah. And like neither's good or bad. It's just like what feels good for you.
Jared Anderson says, hi Tanner.
But certainly don't fall into the trap of thinking that if you're not coming out as something, that part of you is less valid, or that, you know what I mean? Like, you are you independent of how others see you, and but it is nice to feel seen by those close to you, so straddle that line how you will. There is an idea in the queer community and among straight people that you have to figure out your identity and come out on a timetable. Your answer was so effing good. Made me laugh with that wouldn't you like to know question. I've been cooking dinner for everyone during this live stream, and it's made it so enjoyable. Didn't even need to get a buzz to start cooking. Can we actually tell you a secret? We actually haven't been drinking any alcohol. We've just been having LaCroix throughout this.
We're posers.
Not that there's anything wrong with drinking at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. It just wasn't the vibe today. Life is like an improv show. As you progress the performance, you learn more about your character and the environment they're in. Yes. Yeah. And like, we think we have a grasp on who we are, but it's like, those are all just stories, and like generally we're pretty unreliable narrators of ourselves, and
Someone said, any advice for figuring out your sexuality if you're questioning? I think just the biggest thing is just being open, not feeling like a rush or a need to like to be something for the sake of being something. Only that the door is open, and if you're interested in having experiences outside of the norm, then just having that as an intention is probably good enough, and you'll encounter a situation where then you can, you know, take a step to experience that. And again, like we were saying earlier, hold everything kind of loosely, because you could, for instance, I've had you know, plenty of great interactions with men, but then I've had other ones where I was like, oh, that was terrible, I didn't enjoy that. Like, does that mean I'm not even gay? And it's like, it literally, it's not even about that. It's like every circumstance is unique, and as long as you're just like open and finding more and more what tends to feel good, and, you know, focusing on that things, it'll work itself out. And no rush to like find this all-defining identity for yourself.
Yeah, I definitely think doing away with the idea that there is this like, if you uncover enough dust, like there will lie your sexuality, and you'll like finally see it in its entirety. Like really your sexuality is just like whatever whatever it is moment to moment. Like what turns you on today, like what makes you feel sexual, you know, like that's your sexuality, and that it isn't stagnant, and there isn't some like perfectly preserved hidden underneath it all, because the truth is, it's not like you start digging and then eventually you get to the bottom and there's the gem that is your sexuality. The truth is that once you start digging, the form of your sexuality will probably change and evolve with it, depending on how you dig. So it's like,
it's the digging.
The digging is your sexuality, you know. It's just like, what are you feeling inclined to do today?
What are you digging?
Nothing, something, what are you thinking about, you know? Just, I think we see sexuality as like is it a noun? Yeah. Rather than like a verb.
And everything is a verb, isn't it?
Everything is a verb, is a noun, isn't
it? We need to do more slam poetry, I think.
That's what's coming out of this.
Well, is that a good place to wrap it up?
You know, it might be.
Obviously, we can always be incentivized.
Obviously, with the right super chat, we could be on here for 12 more hours, honestly. Yeah, pressure of labels often comes from the binary perspective associated with Mormonism. Being honest and learning to be comfortable with uncertainty is so freeing. And I do feel like with any discussion about anything, becoming comfortable with uncertainty is so key. Because the way that like the political system is, and like sort of general discourse in society, and kind of like everything that sucks, we were just talking about this before the stream, is because like we just like humans are so horny for black and white thinking, and we're so bad with nuance. And like,
with paradox, and everything is paradoxical.
Yeah, we're so not comfortable with paradox. I mean, like, I feel like in the, you know, like, people who grew up in the East, around, like, more Eastern religions, I feel like paradox is more a part of their sort of frameworks for looking at the world. But I feel like in the West, we're not good with paradox, just as a concept. And so we're always looking for, like, well, is it this or is it this? It's like, you know, should we just let all kids, like, take whatever hormones they want whenever they want? Or should we, you know what I mean? It's like, I just feel like the truth with so many things is just going to be in like
way
the discussion and the yeah. And I think it's hard with stuff like sexuality because, you know, there is a genuine like polarity there, in that there is a group of people that are just like, you don't deserve to like exist and have rights and blah blah blah, and then obviously, you know, and so it's just all tough.
It's hard to get into the nuance of things.
It's hard to feel
when
safe
you're just like
nuance.
Trying to defend against people who are like not even willing.
Because when you're defending, typically, when you are feeling the need to defend, that's not the time when you're like drawn to nuance. You know, you need to. The most nuanced conversations are going to be with your friends, like who understand your viewpoints well enough to know that when you say certain things, you're not implying. You know what I mean? It's like nuance requires like quite the foundation. Or it requires just a society that's, good faith, and a society that's used to it. And it is hard to have good faith in a society where there's a lot of homophobia. Yeah, why did I start talking about that? Oh yeah, being comfortable with uncertainty. Yeah. And like, there's no core you. Like neuroscience has shown, there's no soul, there's no like perfectly preserved part of you that is like the most you of all the, like we're all just an interplay of processes interacting with our environment, with like conditioned ways of thinking and looking at things, and everything is just like so dynamic and fluid, and just repeating myself. But yeah, I really like all the people that have been in the comments today saying stuff like that. Yeah, some folks want to label themselves and some don't. Live and let live.
Spagnas Town Council, whose avatar is a marijuana leaf. said thanks both. These are the conversations I wish I could have with my friends.
Oh, I wish you could have them with your friends too, and we are your friends in a... Well, it doesn't feel as parasocial with the live stream. That's why it's nice. Is like you're actually, you know,
actually having a convo.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Eve. You guys are very wise. I wish I would have been like that when I was as young as you are now. That's so nice. That's so nice. This has been so nice.
Everyone is so nice. Sometimes it's hard to handle.
We really got away from the porn bots at the beginning of the stream, and this turned into something quite touching and moving.
It's like a metaphor or something. Fight through the porn bots, get to the friendships.
Yep. And you might even be able to make your car payment this month along the way. Last question for both. What resources would you recommend or like to see for young people figuring out their sexuality / gender identity right now? I mean, I can point to like, you know, books like Sex at Dawn, The Ethical Slut, More Than Two. Like there's, I'm sure you could list a bunch of books. I think that it is important though to just like, dare I say it, be reading and just like be consuming like wisdom from people who have gone through the things that you're going through. And like it can be tough in our society to get wisdom from our elders because a lot of our elders are like racist and homophobic, and it's
or
like
died in the AIDS
you
crisis.
don't want their wisdom. Yeah, so it's like it really is like books are a great way to get like deep learning, and they do allow for a lot of like self-reflection, and I've learned so much about myself through reading like non-fiction and fiction. But I really am all about like committing to reading as like, I don't know if that's a unpopular message. It's probably not. But committing to learning about yourself.
One of my beefs with Pride, and I have a few beefs with the Pride Center specifically, don't have to go into that right now. And someone was like, for all their faults, at least we have a place where queer youth can experience queer communal joy with other people. And I was like, totally. My first time at the Pride Center, I was like, this is so great, and just nothing but gratitude. You know, as things have become a little bit more complex, my ideas have shifted a little bit, but ultimately, a resource that I would love to say, I wish there were more spaces like that where youth can experience communal queer identity that wasn't, again, it's not centered, you don't have to pay to get in, it's not centered around you, just your ability to spend money at a location, which is really where I feel a lot of angst is like, I really feel like queerdom is revolutionary, and that could be like a revolutionary way of building alternative communities to capitalism. And even my views on capitalism are complex and don't have time to go into that right now. But yeah, I wish there was more things that weren't centered around making about, you know, LGBTQ youth being a market, and just being able to experience and share, and where art can be made and celebrated. And maybe it just takes, you know, somebody who's willing to do that and organize it. But, you know, all of us are just trying to get by, and we all got to make money somehow, and blah, 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 blah. But I do wish there was more, like, spaces like that. I know, like, there's going to be a mutual aid event this Friday, I believe. Maybe it's a different day. I hope it's not this Friday, because I'm doing a thing. But, yeah, there's things like that, and I hope there's going to be more and more of that in the future. Anyway, fight through the porn bots, get to the friendships. I'm making that into a t-shirt. Give us a cut, will ya?
If I do write the Gay Book of Mormon fanfic, where would be the best place to place it? It's a good question. Maybe like Medium. They have quite a good like self-publishing platform. Are you planning to do more live streams this month and the next? Yeah, I mean,
if y'all are digging them, we were kind of talking about this before. Like we sometimes get comments that are like, you guys are good at recordings and not live stuff, so don't do live.
Well, I think we're quite charming live a lot of the time.
Yeah,
not like
okay. But if y'all are into it, we'll keep doing it.
So I should do more YouTube premieres. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're always kind of... It's tough with content creation because you so badly just want to be like a purist and just like make the stuff you want to make and not have it be about the money. But then it's also like, this is our full-time job, so we do need to make money. So we're always kind of torn between like, you know, if we do a live stream, we don't make any money, it's kind of a bit disheartening because it's like, well, we technically could have been doing like freelance work that would have earned us like money to pay rent. So you guys who have given super chats on this live stream, thank you.
Yeah, seriously.
Because it makes it so that we can do more things like this where we do get to like connect in like a really nice way that feels very like genuine and not just one-sided like with an edited video. And like it's not about the money, but like it also is.
It's the paradox we were talking about earlier with.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if we could pay our bills, then it wouldn't be, you know, and then we'd have more freedom to just. But right now, that is just how it is. Again, if you want our bonus content on Patreon, which I think is very good, patreon.com/self on the shelf. Yeah. Okay. Well, this has been a really fun. Oh, look, we're finishing right at 90 minutes.
How lovely.
Cute.
Thank you all for joining us.
Yeah.
Happy Pride to those of you associated with the gay agenda. And hope y'all's month is wonderful. Just know that you're perfect the way you are and deserve to be celebrated and experience joy, whatever kind of relationship or non-relationship you are in, whether your sexuality is directed toward men or women or trans people or nobody, that's fine. You're allowed to just be you, and you're benefiting the world by just being the way you are. So thank you. Thank you for supporting us. We sure love you and appreciate all the nice comments and the money.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Bye. Oh,
How do